Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Spumelele Zonde with your technology and social media news. We hope you still are sanitizing, using those face masks if you are in crowded spaces, and washing your hands as well. We need to curb the spread of COVID-19. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you if you ever verify information or even care whether what you are sharing on the internet is true or not, especially if this information is about celebrities or other public figures. This, as Bonang Mateba has said, that she's suing a podcaster for information that she finds to be defamatory about herself. Results of that are coming up later in the program. Firstly, here's what's coming up tonight. We check in with Twitter, which is bringing back the verification process so more people can now get the blue tick. We go to Africa Comms Week in Pretoria. And in our conversation, we go to the Durban University of Technology to chat about Spectrum. We also play with robots over there. Of late, there have been many discussions about children possibly spending too much time on social media to keep busy, especially during the pandemic. But there are ways of children spending a lot of time with their technologies without necessarily being on social media. And these Lego robots could be one of those ways. They can just program them and play with the robots. Something else that happened on social media recently is that Twitter brought back its blue tick, which means more people can apply to be verified. If you are on Twitter, you probably know the blue tick or the blue badge. Many high-profile individuals have the tick. Think former American President Barack Obama, South African billionaire Elon Musk, and South African football team Amazulu.
With modern technology comes catfishing, and so to avoid such, where our fans fall victim to scams and all sorts of things, it's important to have verification. And what it also does is that it kind of legitimizes and validates your account.
Being verified on Twitter is to show authenticity of the account and to tell the public that this is the real account of the high-profile organization or individual they're searching for. Anything else is a clone or a fake.
I trust the verified Twitter account because with regards to accountability, at least we know who to go to, unlike an unverified one where one can deny that that account does not belong to them.
I personally find it a bit easier to trust a verified account.
Until just under 4 years ago, you could apply to be verified on Twitter. Twitter would have their checks and balances to see if you were worthy to receive the blue tick or whether you were high profile enough.
Twitter's blue verification mark is seen as a symbol of influence and legitimacy. And in a time where misinformation and disinformation is running rampant, it's important to know that the news and information that you're getting online is coming from a verifiable source.
Ukhozi FM presenter Mzoko Logo received his verification tick after his second application.
Other people paid a lot of money to get verified by people who claimed to help people get verified. So for it to come back, I think it comes back with more awareness and at the right time where people are more familiar with using social media, mostly in our country.
Then in December 2017, the year Mzoko Logo had been approved, Twitter stopped the process.
I don't care about Twitter. Twitter's bad news. They're all bad news.
Since then, Twitter has been more extreme. They even delete some accounts as they deleted the account of former American President Donald Trump for his social media outbursts, some say incited his supporters to storm Capitol Hill. There are those who say Trump's views on social media were dangerous. Twitter has now cleaned up the rules on how accounts get verified as they return with the ban. Even though the blue tick is back, some say they wouldn't get verified because the process demands too many personal details.
I'm a little wary of uploading personal details like my ID number, my actual picture, email address, that type of personal information on an unknown international global source. I'm scared.
Even with such views, you can be sure that more people will be applying for the blue tick. Recently, the Durban University of Technology got a few new cool robots. Now, not one, but two, maybe a couple more are part of the robots that they recently purchased. And in future, we probably will have to learn how to communicate with machines and robots, and probably communicate with each other in a world full of humanoid robots. But that was not part of Africa Communications Week, and I trust that it will be in future. Producer Sandile Hlangani can tell us what happened in Pretoria at Africa Communications Week.
As the world has been battling COVID-19, many have turned to social media for information. Even social media networks got involved and deleted posts by some world leaders like Brazil Jair Bolsonaro and former American President Donald Trump when they found them to be sharing misinformation. Social media and COVID-19 came under the spotlight as communication specialists and media practitioners met at Africa Communications Week in Pretoria. They say in the fight against COVID-19 in Africa, the internet and social media have been a double sword.
This is where everybody thinks that they have the right to say whatever they want to say. It's not controlled. No one is accountable to anyone. It's difficult to be in that space. But then you have bodies that are monitoring the platforms that do share information such that citizens get to understand that the quality of information that they're exposed to is not necessarily true. I mean, MMA is doing that kind of work.
Having access to the internet, having access to social media channels that allow so many people to talk to so many other people, inevitably, those who are not quite legitimate, or who are bad actors, or who have an agenda, are obviously going to try and sway that conversation.
These platforms have also allowed people to stay in touch during pandemics, and some businesses have been able to operate in the face of lockdowns.
We built a community of love, if you want me to put it that way, you know. And I think the one thing that did kind of stand out is how our own president, you know, used a term that he picked up on social media around family meetings. So that just goes to show the power of social media and the power of communication.
Yet, these technologies have facilitated the spread of misinformation.
I also have been misled many a times by false news that people have shared on the different platforms. It does become very difficult to kind of tell what is false news and what is like real news, because we would assume that everything that comes from a certain platform, whether being government or whatever other organization, is true.
I believe that there's a lot of misinformation that is going around. However, we cannot personally be in control of how people spread misinformation. What we can do is to educate ourselves and be able to make sure that we do great research based on the information that we have before actually spreading out the information, just so we can make sure that the information that we're spreading is correct.
While some stay connected in many parts of the world, parts of Africa face internet shutdowns, often around elections.
When governments shut down communication platforms like the internet, it has the net result of undermining trust in government. Just because you shut down a platform doesn't mean people are not going to be saying things that you don't like.
A significant communication shutdown occurred in Cameroon in 2018. Zimbabwe, Burundi restricted access to internet in 2020. Experts say sub-Saharan Africa lost more than 2 billion in economic value in 2019 as a result of these shutdowns.
We are going to be seeing years of unrest, deepening inequality. The youth of Africa were actually getting somewhere, and COVID has set them back. Tourism, the decimation of tourism, and hopefully tourism can come back, is really, really troubling, because ecologically sensitive areas rely on tourism. We rely on tourism in rural areas. It's a way to get money from the rich West into relatively underdeveloped parts of the world.
Some say there are policies in place meant to deal with such.
Every platform has policies, every platform kind of has best practice on how to post, how to share information, how to speak, how to verify yourself as well as an organization. So there are ways in which organizations can kind of verify themselves to being like trusted sources.
AfricaCom's Week brought together media, communicators to learn and discuss ways in which we can collaborate and share information.
I like it when you touch my head.
I'm not sure what to make of that, but do you remember a time when Internet Explorer was all the internet we had and the only way we could really communicate with machines and gadgets? Well, things have evolved a lot since then, and parts of the internet are humanoid robots like Pepper that we found at the Durban University of Technology. But we've heard that's how things started, that Internet Explorer is now shutting down.
Papa Madube uses Internet Explorer at work. It is a web browser that comes with the Microsoft Office package when purchasing a computer. It has been in existence for 25 years, and Papama says it is what she is familiar with and has been using it since she started using the internet.
I started using the internet many years ago, using Internet Explorer, because that's what I was introduced to. I'm a late adopter, man, so I don't know, I'm stressed because I hate adopting new things because I'm a technotard, I'm not good with technology. So I think I'll have to navigate my way around this Chrome that they're talking about.
Of lately, many have been using Internet Explorer to download other browsers. Microsoft has said that they are now shutting down what was once the world's most popular browser.
It's just not compatible with more innovative and interactive applications. They've suggested using their Microsoft Edge as an alternative. And of course, there are other web browsers in the market that users can use. And the two things to really take into consideration when considering which browser to use is obviously compatibility, as well as speed and features that you require in your web browser.
While Internet Explorer would come with most computers, we have been surprised that some we spoke to don't know the browser.
I don't know Internet Explorer. The internet browser I started using ever since was Chrome. That's because, well, it has more of everything that we learn nowadays.
So I started using Internet Explorer first, but as time went by, I started using Chrome because it was faster and convenient, and the updates were quicker. You just get in the times with technology.
When I started using the internet, I used Google Chrome. That's what I used because it's quite quicker for me.
There are organizations such as the SABC, which has been using the Internet Explorer as their main browser. And as Explorer shuts down, we wonder which other options are there for them.
This change means that organizations who still use Internet Explorer as their primary browser or default browser still have a little bit of time between now and June 2022 to start moving over.
The switch off, which will come in June 2022, was inevitable. Between 2000 and 2005, Internet Explorer had 90% of the market share.
It is the SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. After the break, we go to the Durban University of Technology to chat about Spectrum and the recent Spectrum that was issued out by ICASA. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Welcome back. Now, we've heard the news that ICASA has decided to issue out Spectrum to 5 SMMEs as opposed to the big telecoms providers. Now, Spectrum enables us to do a lot of things on our mobile phones, over the internet, and in tech in general. But to help us understand things better is Ibrahim Asma, Asmal, who is from the Durban University of Technology's IT department. Hello, and thank you very much for being a part of our network, Ibrahim. Maybe if you can start by telling us what spectrum actually is.
You have an electromagnetic spectrum, which are basically radio frequency waves that one would use for all types of wireless communication systems like radio, TV, phones, Wi-Fi. Each technology requires a different range of frequencies within this spectrum in order to function. Example like the FM radio, which has a range of 87.8 to 108 kilohertz. The entire spectrum in South Africa is owned by the government. And ICASA is responsible for overseeing the allocation of the frequencies, and they are sold to companies for a period of time. As they become available, generally ICASA auctions them. When we talk about 5G, 5G is high-speed wireless communication as well, and it needs part of the spectrum to work. Basically with 5G we have 3 bands. The low end, which uses less than 1 gigahertz, the mid end, which uses the 1 to 6 gigahertz range, and the high end, which is from 6 to over 95 gigahertz.
Now, SMEs have received the latest allocation of a spectrum from ICASA.
Yes, firstly, 5 SMEs have been granted a license of about 60 megahertz each within the mid-end range, which is the C-band, from 3.6 to 3.8 gigahertz. These bands have been released to the SMEs, have not been identified for mobile telecommunications. That is why you find that they didn't have to be auctioned.
One would assume that the big telecoms providers are livid that it didn't go to them.
Oh yes, they are. Firstly, this gives smaller companies entry into a lucrative market which it did not have before. And this will create competition and hopefully better service and lower cost for the consumer. But in saying this, the problem is that the SMEs that have been licensed don't have the financial resources to fully exploit the spectrum that they have. It is now most likely that they will approach mobile operators about sharing the spectrum. And one of the CEOs have already alluded to this. It's like Vodacom shares Rain's 4G spectrum, and they share Liquid Telecom's 5G spectrum.
Now, Ibrahim, tell us about the kind of spectrum that was recently issued out by ICASA.
This particular spectrum is more defined for the 5G network. So it's basically high-speed internet connectivity. When we say internet, it's also mobile connectivity.
Ibrahim, you have a robot next to you. Tell us about them.
So this is our Professor Pepper, which has just arrived. So we are busy programming it, and we're going to be using it for research, for marketing, and those types of things.
All right, Ibrahim Asmal and Professor Pepper, thank you very much for joining us and being a part of our network this evening. All right, and with that, let's take a short break. It is SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back. Here's what else took place in the rest of the world in the technology space.
Eurovision fans stranded in their home countries due to the COVID-19 pandemic are reaching out to friends and online communities to celebrate the event, known for its pop songs and flashy costumes. The Netherlands is hosting the 65th edition of the event. All 39 participating countries and their delegations are tested before they can enter the venue. For the thousands of die-hard fans outside the Netherlands, attendance is near impossible this year. But that doesn't mean the party has to stop. Those unable to join friends and family to watch the live broadcast in person are welcome in the online community.
But generally, it's quite kind and quite generous, and people just want to feel like they're engaging with other people. I think that's partly about Eurovision.
For a long time, Peter Boston, now in his 70s, says modern technology has made the remote watching experience more like the real thing.
I've been fortunate enough to attend the last, 8 of the last 10, I think. We've really missed it since Tel Aviv. So everybody's doubly excited this year that the contest can actually be held at all in any form.
2020 marked the first time the contest was cancelled since its inception in 1956. In the US, a federal judge grilled Apple chief executive Tim Cook over whether the iPhone maker's App Store profits from developers such as Frontline. Cook testified for more than 2 hours in Oakland, California. App makers, including music service Spotify, European regulators, and the US, politicians who question whether the company that once urged the world to think different has now become too big and too powerful. The maker of Frontline, an online game, has waged a public relations and legal campaign against Apple. Apple has sought to persuade the judge that its rules for developers are aimed at keeping its customers' information private and safe from malware.
Now, recently, celebrity Bonang Matheba issued papers that she shared on social media to say that she is suing a podcaster over drug use allegations. This week, our Twitter poll is asking you if you ever verify information, especially about famous people, before sharing it on the internet. 40% of those that responded to our poll say they do verify and they actually do care about whether the information they share is factual or not. In last place are people say they don't verify at all, they just tweet. And there's 39%. It's almost neck and neck with those who verify and do care. That 39% says they verify, but they actually don't care whether what they share is factual or not. And that's it. That's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It is News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Remember to stay home if you don't need to be outside. Wear that face mask if you have to be outside. We have to curb the spread of COVID-19. From me, Spumela Lezondi, and the rest of the network team. Stay home and stay safe. Good night.